The Burros of Berea is a conversational podcast.
We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith.
And one of us doesn't have a faith.
But we still love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burros of Berea.
Well, welcome back to the Burros of Berea. I'm Rick Welch, and to my left is dun dun na 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 na. That's the clown music. I've already done it. Cherry the Annihilator Lewis.
Hello.
I was waiting to see where that would go. I was like, can I sing along? But I couldn't get it in time.
And I went wrong. Behind the glass, Rocket Man, Andy Bishop, and Sarita the Edge Edgerton.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, we don't have Billy Kimsey. We do not have Ralph Hicks for reasons to which I will not tell.
Yes, please. That's not needed to be made public.
And Rick Carter wasn't able to make it. He's in work. He's having to work down in Augusta, Georgia, and wasn't able to get away. So it's just me.
He's playing golf.
Yeah. Me and the ladies in the back studio and Andy in the front. So it's just us.
It's just dust, ladies.
It's just dust, ladies. That was funny, Andy, by the way, in your text. It's just dust.
It's just dust, ladies.
So this is kind of an interesting thing here, guys. Our guest today. So I was searching my name on the internet.
Were you really searching your name?
I was actually
never do that.
Never do. I was actually doing something with checking the metrics of the Burros of Berea. I like to go through and see how high we are when we do certain Google searches.
We're real high.
We are actually.
Depending on the day.
On the Google searches. Yeah, I guess so. But, and then I also, sometimes I'll do like each one of your names with Burros of Berea just to see if anybody's talking about it. And you'd be surprised.
There's so many swear words.
Yeah. And so I did Rick Welch, and then I saw this little link, this thing about this guy named Rick Welch in Vermont. And I clicked on it and looked, and I couldn't believe what I was reading, besides the fact that we had the same name. But he has this incredible testimony. And I was like, what? So, and you know me, proper Rick fashion, I'm going to send an email and we're going to try, right? That's what I did. So I shot an email to to Mr. Welch in Vermont, and he responded very kindly. And we had a conversation on the phone, and he gave me more of his testimony, and I was blown away. And so I want to welcome our guest, Mr. Rick Welch out of Vermont. Thank you for being on the program.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it was awesome to talk to you and get that email that day. It just blew me away too, and I knew, wow, this is probably meant to be. So it's good to be here. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to get into this. It's got a amazing story that involves his son, whose name is also Richard Welch. We all share Richard Welch as our names, and but what Mr. Welch is going to tell us today is quite surprising. It's so providential. It's so amazing what God does in people's lives and how he orchestrates things. So I'm glad to meet you, and I'm ready to jump in this. You ready to jump in?
I'm ready to jump in.
All right. So whenever we have our testimony episodes, I always ask the same question of every guest, the very first question. To the best of your ability, can you tell me the earliest memory of when you heard the name Jesus Christ?
Yeah, right. I went to, private Catholic school, so I heard it pretty young in my life. 5 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, right around there.
Wow. That's pretty young. Let's get into this. So tell us your story, Mr. Welch. I'm really interested to hear where you grew up, how you came up, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, my name's Rick Welch, and I was born in 1956. I'm 67 years old. I grew up in Connecticut. You probably can tell by the way I talk a little bit. I'm from that area. Where I grew up in Connecticut was exactly halfway between New York City and Boston. So they called it Midway. So I have kind of an accent that has both influences on it. So that's how I talk, and that's what I do. But I grew up in New London, Connecticut, which was deemed the submarine capital of the world. They built submarines at a place called Electric Boat. So most of the population in the town of New London, in some way, shape, or form, was either employed by Electric Boat or employed by a service that supported Electric Boat. And it was no different in my family. I grew up in a middle-class family. My father worked at Electric Boat. He worked there for 43 years.
Like a
My
real
mom
company town.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it was a real company town. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was an electrician. And that's how we lived. That's how he supported us. We were all athletes. I have three brothers. I had two brothers and one sister. There was three boys. My sister's 12 years older than me, and she's an awesome supporter of mine. She's one later in life that never gave up on me and was always there for me. But we had a pretty normal, childhood until, we played baseball, football, basketball. It was all that. My father was a drummer. I'm a drummer. My father was a drummer. He played big band music.
Yeah, represent, man.
Represent.
Yes. So I kind of grew up, I grew up with music. I grew up with sports. So it kept me pretty busy in my younger years. But, I remember going to Coast Guard Academy football games. And there was a man that was coaching the football team in the Coast Guard. His name was Otto Graham, a Hall of Famer quarterback. And he knew my father pretty well. They knew each other pretty well. And I remember him coming up into the stands, and I always wanted to play football for the Coast Guard. I wanted to be a Coast Guard cadet. That was my dream as a kid. We used to drive past the academy, and the cadets would be marching on the front lawn, and I'd see them all in uniform and in unison. And boy, it was so beautiful. I wanted to be a part of that. And then we went to the football games, and I met Otto Graham. He came up to the stands, and he was talking to my dad, and I went right up to him really boldly. I said, "You know what? I'm going to play for you someday. I'm going to play on the Coast Guard Bears." And he said, "You just go for your dream. You keep working hard. You practice, and you very well might get there someday." I'll never forget him telling me that. But something happened to me when I was 9 years old that just turned my life into such a dark place and such a frightening place. I was on my way home from a baseball game, walking home alone, when an uncle of mine pulled up in his pickup truck and picked me up to give me a ride home, but he didn't bring me home. What he did was he brought me into this secluded place in the woods, and he raped me.
Oh my God.
And he
At
he hurt
9 years
bad.
old.
Yeah, and this continued on. My father worked for him. He was my father's boss. He told me if I had said anything that he would fire my father and that we would end up in the poorhouse. And back then, in that time, that was a lot of people used that as a threat. I thought the poorhouse was a real place.
Right, sure.
I wanted to go to the poorhouse, so I shut my mouth. But it seemed that my uncle got the schedule for all of our games, and he just kept coming and coming. And pretty soon he threatened to hurt my younger brothers. I was the oldest boy. And I just, for 3 years, from the time I was 9 to 12, this just continued to happen. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't tell anyone. I remember going home at night, really hurt, bleeding. I mean, really messed up. And I didn't have anyone to tell. It was just a lonely, scary place. But when I got to be 12 years old, one night after he came to pick me up, I brought a baseball bat with me. I brought a baseball bat with me.
Yeah.
I said, "This is it. And this is not happening anymore." And I attacked him with the baseball bat. And I busted his windshields out of his truck. And I busted him in the head. And it was over. And that was it. But the thing that would happen to me and several victims of abuse, sexual abuse like that, was just the guilt and the shame of it. And I didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So that's when I started to drink beer. I started to smoke cigarettes. I started to do, back in those days, there was they used to call them crossroads. It was speed. It was speed. I got my hands on that. But really anything that got me high, anything that got me out of myself, that's what I gravitated to. And it was just the start of a long life of addiction and devastation. Mm-hmm. Another thing, when I was a victim of this abuse, you started to question your sexuality.
Absolutely.
And, you start to question that. And because, my first sexual experience in life was with a man. Yeah. And it confuses you. It brings you to a place of questioning yourself, questioning your, who you are and what you desired and all that kind of thing. So I started really trying to get with women, with girls at that age. And really, it was really important to me to have somebody all the time. And so by the time I was 16 years old, I was going out with a young lady, and we were in high school, and she got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And she got pregnant at 17. And we had, our son, Rick. By the time, I was 18 in months. And so I was a father at a very young age, and was just a lot of pressure. I quit high school. I didn't go to high school. I got a job so I could support them. And that was the start of my early adult life. Was, I never had a high school prom. I never did the things the other kids did at my age. I felt so robbed and so mad. I was very, very mad individual.
Rick, do you know that, I'm sorry, Sarita. Do you know that we have a similar history? That happened to me as well as at the young age of 5, and wow. Again, by a family member. And so we have that similar. That was my first sexual experience as well. I had the same kind of thing. And also my father, whose name is Richard as well, got my mom pregnant whenever she was 16, and he was 15, and I was born in 75. So there were 2 pregnancies like that in 75, 2 Rick Welches being born under the same kind of circumstances. It's pretty wild. Wow,
that's really wild. So the devastation, and the feelings, and just the way that you perceive the world, you perceive other men,
yes,
you perceive yourself. It was like that just shut things down, man. It just shut things down.
It does. And like you said, the questioning your sexuality, you start to wonder, like, why am I looking at boys this way? Is there something, there's obviously something wrong with me, because in our society at that time, it was very frowned upon to even consider it. But to be confused about that, to be like, I'm attracted to girls, but why am I looking at boys this way? Oh, it was awful. It was such a lonely place. I remember that.
No, it was alone. And the thing is that you couldn't talk about it.
Oh, no. No, you don't talk about that. Even when I did bring it up to my parents, and I love my parents, but it was just, you sweep that stuff under the rug. You don't talk about that stuff in public.
And the thing was with my parents, when I was, I don't know how, I don't want to get too in detail, but
sure.
When I was raped like that, I mean, you bleed.
Right.
And your clothes get messed up.
Yeah, and they ask the questions, right? And you have to make lies.
Right. And are you going to the bathroom, and you shouldn't do that, and you're lazy, and what I mean? And all the time it was blood.
Yep.
And so I took a couple beatings for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like, so I was so angry. I just, but anyway, and then I was a father at 18. I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship with anyone, let alone be a dad and be a husband. And so I had my younger brother. My younger brother got thrown out of my parents' house for a couple of reasons. He stole some money, and he was violent with my mother. So I took him into my house with my wife, my wife, and after a while, after about 6 months, I came home from work. I was pumping gas. I was working at a factory. I was pumping gas at night. I mean, I was working 2 jobs. I took my brother into the house, and then I came home from work sick one day, and I caught him in bed with my wife.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I felt so betrayed. So I was 19 years old. I was a pipe fitter at Electric Boat. I was in the apprenticeship program, and I wanted to get out. I was so embarrassed. So she left me for him. And there I was at like 19, was getting a divorce. So at 19, I was married, had a kid, and was divorced, besides being raped and besides being betrayed. So at this time, at 19 and 20 years old, man, I was just a raving lunatic.
Yeah,
I was a mess. I was a mess. So anything goes. I started, I was a drummer, like I said, started playing in little garage bands and stuff like that. And, started using harder drugs, so a lot of speed, a lot of cocaine at that time. And I moved. I went out of state. I moved to Chicago with a couple of buddies. We went out to Chicago. I got a job in a power plant. There was a power plant being built out there. I was doing piping work out there, made pretty decent money, but I was, by that time in my life, I was using a lot of cocaine and, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all that stuff. And that's how I lived for a long time.
right.
And it was just like destroying myself. Every penny I made, I spent on drugs. I managed to buy a car. I got in a terrible relationship out there, and it was just, I lasted about 2 years out there before I moved back to Connecticut. And when I got back to Connecticut, I got into a band called the Cartoons, and the band was for the next 6 years. That's all I did, and we were a little bit, successful. We weren't nothing great, and we didn't make a lot of money, but it was the lifestyle that I liked to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one night, so high on cocaine, I had like cocaine psychosis, and I ended up in the hospital, and they put me in the mental wing at the hospital. I was there for like 28 days, and I was just a mess on all kinds of medication, and I just really didn't want to live anymore. Just wanted to end my life. It was just a terrible existence. And so my life went on. I played in several bands, played rock and roll, and then somebody said, you're spending so much money on cocaine. Why don't you try heroin? Because you probably can save some money that way. And how ridiculous is that, right?
I mean,
That's the wildest financial advice I've ever heard in my life.
But listen, I took it. It sounded reasonable to me, and I thought, I'm pretty smart. I'll make this financial decision. But it was like,
I mean, it's just like the last time I went to Edward Jones, he was like, listen, heroin is a much cheaper drug than straight up Coke. Why don't you?
So
wow.
It was like, when you're in that condition, you don't make, sounds.
There's no sense in anything. Sure.
And so that led me to a place, man, that was so dark and so lonely. And for the next 18 years of my life.
Wow. So you were an heroin addict for almost 18 years?
Yeah, a little longer.
A little longer than 18 years. Wow.
Tell you what, you can't pull those kind of numbers today.
No, I mean, back then there was, I don't know. Back then it was more ethical. I mean, the people that were dealing, and the people that, you were getting dope from, were actually wanted you to keep coming back. They didn't want to see you die.
Sure.
So it was a little bit, it was a little bit more, I don't know, safer back then. Today with the fentanyl, and I deal with that every day here, with the overdoses and the people, that we hear that came into our program and left our program and they overdose. You hear about it all the time. I've never seen it so bad. But back then you were able to do that and, being in bands and then I decided that, listen, I better get some help. Somebody said, you need some help, man. And I said, yeah, no kidding. And so that's when I went into my first rehab. I was working, so I had some insurance and the insurance paid for me to go to the first rehab. The rehab was called Edge Hill of Newport in Newport, Rhode Island. And it was like $30,000 for 28 days. That the insurance paid for this rehab. Yeah, it was crazy.
Did your financial advisor tell you that the heroin would have still been a lot cheaper?
Are you tired of compromising when it comes to protecting your valuable firearms? Then let us tell you about Carolina Cases, your ultimate destination for hard plastic, impact-proof pistol cases. Carolina Cases are TSA approved and are crafted with high-quality foam, ensuring maximum protection for your firearms during transport or storage. At Carolina Cases, they understand the importance of safeguarding your investments. Carolina Cases provide unparalleled durability, keeping your pistols safe from impact and damage. So hop on over to www.carolinacases.net to explore their wide range of pistol cases designed to meet your specific needs. Don't settle for less. With Carolina Cases, you can ensure your firearms are safely stored, preserve your peace of mind, and protect what matters most. Enter code BUREAUS at checkout to receive free shipping.
Back then, the insurance companies, they paid that. They paid that.
Yeah, this is the whole wild thing about how and why a lot of insurances don't pay for that anymore. It ended up being a very usurious system.
Sure.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, so I spent, like 28, 30 days there. It was like the Betty Ford Clinic of the East. They served you, they had chefs and they served you the food. You go and do aerobics in the morning. That was in the Richard Simmons era.
Oh, wow. Sweating to the oldies.
Yeah, that's right. And there was some famous, I won't say, but there was some pretty famous people in the rehab at the time I was there. And you got to know that, this addiction, it didn't know any borders or boundaries and affected everyone. Mm-hmm. So when I finished the program, 3 hours out of the gate, I was in a hotel shooting up again, 3 hours out of the gate. And that's the way it happened for me. And so a long story short, I ended up going to 16 different programs.
Wow.
56 detoxes. I did 56 detoxes.
56 detoxes.
Yeah. There was a detox in my hometown. It was called SCAD. And in London, and I was like, I was a frequent flyer to this place.
Oh my gosh, that's gotta be hard, right? That's got to be hard to like, after so many times of trying to stop. Having to have that day one again, does that start to wear on you after a while?
Yeah, I used to go, and I used to go to the meetings. They had the meetings, AA and NA. And they'd say, welcome back. And they would give you a little white key tag when you came back to NA. Mm-hmm. And, it was the first time coming back, they give you a white key tag. Mm. I had so many white key tags that I made a shower curtain out of them.
Oh my gosh.
like NA said, hey, can we buy some of those back from you?
Oh my gosh.
So it was kind of a way to support myself. I got all these key tags.
Oh my gosh.
But that's how many times I kept going back. Welcome back. I felt like, welcome back product.
Well, you can't
Keep
say you were giving up.
Right.
No, I was trying. Yeah. I knew I didn't know a lot of things, but I knew one thing, that if I didn't stop, I was going to die. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the time that I came into this ministry called Teen Challenge, I'd overdosed and died twice, and they brought me back.
Wow.
It wasn't, like it is and now with the little Narcan thing, you spray it up your nose. I mean, they hit you with a needle that was about 8 inches long. And I remember just being dumped out of cars.
Rolled out of a car to hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right on the curb twice. And so I tell people I was born and I died at the same hospital. And they look at you like you're crazy. But that was one in New London, one in Norwich, Connecticut. Yeah, twice. But I mean, after all those programs, you get to know how to work the system. You get to know what to say to people. And just nothing helped me. I mean, they had me on medication. They had me on, they said I was bipolar. They said I was schizophrenic. They said that I was manic.
What you had was what? PTSD ultimately, or some variation like that, right?
Probably from the abuse as a child.
Absolutely.
I would definitely say that would be a diagnosis.
Yeah. Or there's another. Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. But with all the things that, I went through and all the medication that they had me on, and I remember one counselor I was talking to, and I said to him, "You know what I mean?" And I realized at that minute that he didn't know what I meant because he hadn't been through it. And he said to me, and I was so mad, I stormed out. He said to me, "I might not know what you mean, Mr. Welch, but I'm not about to go to get addicted to heroin to understand you." And he was just so cruel. And I remember getting up and walking out of his office and just saying, I'm done. I was like beyond counseling, I was beyond it.
Yeah.
And after my 16th program, I went to like 3-month programs. There was a couple 6-month programs. There was a program called Lebanon Pines where it was like an exile. They would exile you to the Pines, they used to call it, which was just a secluded place way out in the woods. And they just put all the addicts out there, fence them in, and forget about them. Maybe they'll just die out there and fade away. And I just remember that the biggest thing with me was the hopelessness. I had no hope.
Yeah.
I didn't see a future. I didn't see how I could ever stop. I didn't see how I could ever change. I mean, I tried Christian Science. I tried soaking in hot tubs with people, eating these detox pills from some lake in Scotland and made out of seaweed. And I tried everything, self-help books, the power of positive thinking. I tried everything but acupuncture, and because I said, you're not going to put a needle in me without something behind it.
Right.
Why waste a good hole,
Right.
And,
why waste a good hole? Wow.
So that's, that was the story. And, so in the meantime, this young man was growing up, my son.
Mm-hmm.
He was growing up, and I had times I would see him, times I would leave him sitting on the stoop, promising I would go and pick him up and bring him here and there, but never showing up. I was too high or too wrecked or too tired or just, not able to do that. I remember buying him Christmas presents, and with all good intentions of sending them to him. And Christmas Eve, I'd be taking him out to the dope man and trading them for drugs. I mean, it was just stuff like that I was so guilt-ridden in my life, felt so alone. I remember walking down the road in the middle of the night, looking to cop dope and just passing by the plate glass windows and just glancing at myself and I just had such a deep hate for myself. I couldn't even look at myself. And, I would go back home to my parents' house. They would let me in for a while. Then I would move out again and move in again.
And that loathing doesn't make it easier to quit. It makes it harder. Yeah. It doesn't. Some people think if you hate yourself, why not quit? It's the other way around. The drugs make the hate go away. It's harder. The worse you hate yourself, the harder it is to quit.
Yeah. Because you could tolerate, I could tolerate the hate when I was high. Mm-hmm. I tolerated it. It didn't get rid of it. It always came back. It wasn't the solution, but it was a temporary reprieve from it. And it was like, a painkiller, man. It was a painkiller, exactly what it was. And so this young man, he grew up. He ended up going to. His mother moved to Rhode Island. Ended up marrying my brother, and they're still together today. And we're friends. And I did the whole Jesus thing and forgave them years ago. We're good. But
wait. So hang on. Did they have any children?
No.
That would have been so weird.
Yep.
Your uncle is your stepdad.
Well,
Weird.
try explaining that in a social setting. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It was like very bizarre and very, very, all my life so my son ended up calling my brother dad. That killed me. Not that I was a great dad or anything, but that's just one thing that just stands out in my mind. But he grew up, and today I look at the situation. I say, because my brother was good to my son, so I said, you know what, I got to come to a place that I'm grateful that it was him and not some other man that might have abused him or treated him, in some kind of way.
You tried to find the positive in that. That's good.
Weird mixed blessing.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, is this really about me? All about me, or is it about him? And, addicts are very selfish people. I was very selfish. And I think deep down I wasn't, but on the surface, because of my situation, I couldn't help but to be that way. There was no other way that I could survive. You have to survive on the street. You have to survive circumstances, and it's a selfish world, But, he grew up. He ended up going to the University of Rhode Island. And this is where the story really gets pretty cool. Because, my whole family, we grew up Roman Catholic, and not putting anybody down, but it was just, that's what it was. We all I went to Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school. I didn't finish Catholic high. I got expelled in my sophomore year for punching the assistant principal, after he choked me. But anyway, that's when I quit school and I got a job and started to support my then pregnant girlfriend, who became my wife. But anyway, he grew up. He went to University of Rhode Island, got a good education, and he moved off campus. He didn't want to live on campus, so he answered a couple ads for apartments around the area. And he went to one place, and he liked the place. He liked the guy, and he moved in. And the guy was a born again Christian, this young man. And he led my son to the Lord. So my son came into a relationship with Jesus Christ when he was in young college. Mm-hmm. And he's a musician too. He's a bass player, phenomenal bass player. And so he started going to a church with his friend, an Assembly of God church in Rhode Island. And he had never been and witnessed anything like that before. Because he went into church and he saw, drums, and he saw keyboards,
right?
And he saw guitars, and he heard the worship band, and he goes, "Wow, this is pretty awesome." And being a bass player, he said, "I need to be up there." So he just went up to the pastor, his first time in there, and he just informed the pastor that he was going to be on the worship team. He wanted to be on the worship team, and the pastor, being a wise man, said, "Well, that's nice, but you have to wait a while till you get up on the platform." But he realized to keep my son engaged, he told him that he could come midweek and maybe practice with the worship team, but he wouldn't be able to, be on the platform with them for a while. So it kept him engaged. So, the musicians, they like to hang out by the soundboard. So they're hanging out in the back of the church every Sunday. He would go with his friend, and they're hanging out, and the worship team's, practicing, and he's at the soundboard in the back. When this group of men came into the church, some were young, some were old, some were big, some were small. Some had suits on that didn't quite fit right. They all had Bibles in their hands, and they came and they sat in the first couple rows of the church. So my son asked his buddy, Mike, he said, "Who are these guys? What is this?" And he goes, "This is a ministry called Teen Challenge." He says, and I really can't explain it. You just have to watch them and listen to them. And then it'll be self-evident what they're about. So the service began. Teen Challenge was ministering that day. What Teen Challenge does, I don't know if anybody witnessed any Teen Challenge services, or you even know what Teen Challenge is.
No, I don't think we don't. So the more you can tell us, the better.
Okay, so let me just break down what Teen Challenge is. Teen Challenge is a faith-based ministry, Christ-centered ministry, that was established in 1958 by a man named David Wilkerson. He wrote a book. There's a book out about it. It's called The Cross and the Switchblade. It tells all about.
I have too. And I've heard of that book, The Cross and the Switchblade.
Yeah,
I remember
and it's
that.
also a movie.
Yes,
And,
that's right. I remember that.
It's also a movie. The guy from Chips, what was his name?
Eric Estrada.
Eric Estrada. Yeah, he was in it. And Pat Boone, he played David Wilkerson.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that's the ministry of teen. In 1958, they opened one center, and what happened was David Wilkerson was a pastor in Pennsylvania, and he came. He was praying one night, and he somehow got a hold of this Look magazine. Remember the whole?
Look. Yep.
Right, Look, and there was a story in there about a gang in New York City that murdered a young man in a wheelchair to get his leather jacket. And the Lord put on David Wilkerson's heart to go to New York City to talk to these five. There was 5 of them. Talk to these 5 gang members and see if he could help them. So he went to New York City, and that's where the story began. Long story short, he knew that God had called him to minister to the teenage gang members in New York City, and he raised enough money to open up a house there. And he knew if they could just come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, if they could just receive what the Word of God says, that they could come out of their addictions and they could have a life worth living.
And that would have been exactly what it did. That'd have been that 70s, early 80s era of New York City that was real bad, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably so.
So this was, when he initially went there, it was 1958, but through the years, through the early 60s, you're right, late 60s, early 70s, this is when Teen Challenge was just forming and getting off the ground. So there was one building, one center in Brooklyn, New York in 1958. Today, as we're speaking, there's 1,400 Teen Challenge centers in over 132 countries.
Wow.
Worldwide. And that's the place that turned my life around. So my son, sitting in this church, watching this choir, because they came as a choir, not a professional choir, but in between songs, they would testify about their lives and how Jesus touched them, and they would testify where they've been. And he said, wow, that could be my dad. That's my dad. That's my dad's story, because he knew the struggles I was having. We'd be in touch a little bit. He knew I was going to rehabs. He knew I was addicted to heroin. He knew all that. And then he said, I have to tell my dad about this. So after the first service, he saw Teen Challenge. He went down from Rhode Island to New London, Connecticut, probably about 45 minutes. And by this time, I was homeless. I was on the streets. I was sleeping wherever I could. I was in shelters. I was in Salvation Army boxes. You know those boxes? Yeah. I would crawl up in those things and sleep. And he found me. And I know this was God, because I was walking down the street and I saw his car, and I saw him driving up behind me. And I turned down this road because I didn't want him to see me like that. And when I turned the corner, I took a right, turned the corner, and there was this huge sign right in my face that said dead end.
Wow.
There was no way to do it.
Dead end.
Dead end. Dead end.
That's where your life was going.
Looking for a sign.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking for a sign. I found it. So he pulled up, and he had this smile on his face like the Cheshire Cat. And I said, what the heck is this kid smiling about? My life is terrible. And he's smiling, and he gets out of the car, and he runs over to me, and he just embraces me, hugs me. He starts to cry. I start to cry. But I tell you what, something happened in that moment that I felt like somebody wrapped an electric blanket around me and turned it on high.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time, I'm going to get emotional, but
Yeah, that's
for
okay.
the first time in a long time in my life, I felt safe, because I hadn't felt safe since I got raped by that man.
And it was in
Yes.
your son's arms.
In my son's arms.
All those times you held him as a baby.
Yeah.
And he felt safe in your arms. And then now you're feeling, I got chills.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the way that I treated him, I wasn't there for him. I broke his heart many times. And I just said, Rick, I know I wasn't there for you. I felt so bad. He said, Dad, Jesus loves you. And he started talking about Jesus. And he started talking about how Jesus died for me. And that how he forgave me. He says, I forgive you. And I know that it had to be the Jesus in him holding me. So it was him holding me, but it was really Jesus holding me. And it was the love of Christ through my son that I knew that the trajectory of my life would never be the same.
Very big of your
said,
son.
Dad,
How old was he?
He was 20.
20. So it's college.
Yeah.
So the same age you went off the rails, your son is bringing you back on the rails.
Yeah. And so he said, Dad, I found a place for you to go. You need God. And I said, Rick, what God? There's no God. I said, you don't believe that fairy tale stuff, do you? And he said, God is very real, Dad. Jesus died for you. He loves you. I said, please, Dad, I found a place for you to go. I found a place. It's called Teen Challenge. Won't you please go there for me? So the next day was Monday. We called Teen Challenge. They didn't have a bed. It was a waiting list. But 2 weeks later, I entered the program in New Haven, Connecticut. I went in. It was 1997. In October 1997, I went in. And when I entered that place, something happened. I came to know the Lord Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And from that moment on, I never, and it's been 27 years in October for me, I never put another drug or drink in my body.
Wow.
And my life turned around dramatically and radically through the love of Christ and the Word of God. And it was just amazing, the process, the healing that took place in my life. I was able to forgive. My uncle had since passed away, but I was able to forgive him. I was able to forgive my brother, who I was real close to, and Ricky's mom. I was able to forgive them. I was able to take them because I plotted their murder. I plotted a lot of things in and I can tell you stories how I planned to burn them out of their house, and I had the gas cans in my car, and because I knew that he went away, the little one went up to his grandmother's on weekends, so I was going to burn the house down. And the day I was going to do it, I went by the house beforehand, and I saw him playing in the front yard, so I knew he didn't go. He was there. And so just a lot of things like that. But the thing is that happened to me is I had that Damascus Road experience with Jesus. I had a true and genuine encounter with him in the program. I came to know him, came to know his word. It just changed my life forever. And I knew very early on in the program that I never wanted to do anything else but love God, serve God, and help people. And that's exactly what happened. And
now, with you, I don't mean to fast forward it, but I just want to say, so tell them all, because that's where I discovered you, was that you are still with Teen Challenge even now.
Yeah, I came, when I first went in, I said, I'll give it 30 days. I'll stay for 30 days. 27 years later, I'm still here. It's a long 30 days, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got every bit of your money's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And the beautiful thing about Teen Challenge is I walked in the door with nothing. I walked in the door with I had matching luggage. It was hefty bags, right? Hefty. I had like 3 hefty bags and full of rags I called clothes. And, but they didn't ask for anything. They said, just come in. Just open the door. It wasn't $30,000 for 28 days. The program is it's a long-term program. I mean, it's a year long.
Wow.
Back then, it was a year long. Today, it's still a year long. But I went in. It just changed my life forever. And I knew I wanted to serve in that ministry, so I stayed on as an intern. I made $25 a week for a year, and then they hired me on staff, and I made a little salary, and I got my room and board, and that's how I started. And I served in the ministry in Connecticut for 3.5 years, and then we used to go on choir tours, and we used to go up to Upper New England. We started in Maine in the summer. We'd do 3 weeks. We'd go to various churches. That's how we raised money. And we would do the choir thing. We would preach. We would share our testimonies, and they would give us love offerings. That's one of the ways we funded the ministry.
This episode is brought to you by Carolina Cases. Whether in your home, auto, suitcase, or hotel room, you can be assured that with Carolina Cases, you can protect what matters most. Carolina Cases are TSA approved, so you know your items are secured in a shock and impact-proof hard case. These lightweight, durable cases come with pre-cut protective high-quality foam to fit your pistols by make and model, compact size or full size. They also come in a universal configuration for multiple options. Carolina Cases are more than a pistol case. They are available in fully customizable foam to protect what matters. You can go to their website at www.carolinacases.net to see their designer protective lid designs. Each is laser engraved to give you unmatched style at home or on the range. So protect what matters most. Visit www.carolinacases.net. That's www.carolinacases.net. And also, enter code BURROWS at checkout to receive free shipping. That's right. Just enter the code BURROWS at checkout and you'll receive free shipping.
So were you one of those guys in the ill-fitting suit?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was all right. Like the sleeves were too long and the pants were too short, and it's just the way it was.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, sometimes you had to use elastic bands. I remember the bands that we drove around were so bad that on the side doors we had bungee cords holding the doors shut, and we had holes in the floorboard. So if you're doing winter, by the time you got to a church, the bottom of your pants was all like salt and mud, and it was crazy. But we didn't care. Man.
That's right.
That's the real thing.
Message. Yeah.
That's the real thing when it's like that.
Yep.
Yeah. It was like, that's where the rubber met the road, literally, right?
Right.
So we traveled around. But when I got to Vermont, when we came down through Vermont, something happened. It was like I felt the call of God so heavy to the state. And I didn't know that. I didn't know. I had no idea. I just felt something pulling me to Vermont for a long time. I graduated the program. I stayed on staff. And then there was a bunch of churches up here that I got to know some people. And they said, hey, we need a teen challenge in Vermont. And I said, you know something? You're right. You do need a teen challenge in Vermont. So I moved up here in 2001. I had $252.94.
Wow.
And
very specific.
I had a 1989 Mercury Marquis, which is like a boat, right?
Yeah, I had one of those.
It had a broken leaf spring, so it would list like this. And when I got to Vermont, I got a little apartment above a Chinese restaurant. It was really bad, but the food was good downstairs. So people said, they laughed at me. They said, "What are you going to do with that car in Vermont?" Because like Vermont, it's like it snows a lot. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know. I'm going to drive it. And I got stuck more times than I like to make. And they would pull me out of ditches. And I remember being in my apartment and the heat went out. It was November. It was a town called Hardwick, Vermont. And I was above this restaurant. The heat went out. I was freezing cold. I never experienced cold like Vermont. Vermont winters are like crazy. And I remember opening the stove. turning on the oven and putting all the burners on the top of the stove. And by this time I didn't have a job. I didn't have a phone. I had people I was applying for jobs, and people would come over. They would call their house. They'd have to come over and run up my stairs and tell me somebody called. I couldn't find a job. I didn't have any heat. I was running out of money. I remember one night counting change to go get a loaf of bread, and I just had it. I broke down and I said, God, why did you bring me to this godforsaken place? This is like the armpit of America. And
the armpit of America.
Voice, he said to me, are you going to trust me? I broke down. I had a card table. That was my dining room table. It was a card table. And I said, yeah, Lord, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. The very next day, one of the people that I gave the numbers to for job opportunities came running up the stairs and said, you'll have an interview. So I had an interview for a job. Later that afternoon, when I came back from the interview, because I got the job, these people from the church I was going to came up and asked me if I would house sit for them for the winter. They were going to Florida for the winter. They were snowbirds. We call them snowbirds.
Yes.
So you had heat.
Yeah.
So I had a beautiful house, right? A sunken living room. This place was gorgeous. So in one day, after I said that, the night before, I told the Lord, I'll trust you. I got a job. I got a place to stay. And they said, you don't have to pay us anything to be here for 5 months.
5 months.
5 months.
Wow.
Rent-free.
Wow.
So I saved money to get rid of that car. And it was just a miracle. And then I started working up here. I worked at a place called Huntington Homes, or building modular homes. I was a pipe fitter, a plumber, and I did some of the plumbing in the homes. It was all inside. I didn't have to deal with the Vermont weather. And then I started to raise money for the ministry. And then the president of Teen Challenge New England called me up and said, hey, I want you to be the director of the center up there. We have some people that are putting it together, a committee that want to launch a center there. And he said, so I want you to be, if you want to put your name in the hat, we'll interview you. We'll get the committee and see if you can be the director there. And the committee voted. They liked me. They liked my testimony. They liked my passion. So he said, now you're the director of nothing. That's what he said. And he said, now go get me some results. So I started raising money. I started going around to churches anywhere I could go, anybody that would hear me, any soapbox I could get on, and I would just spread the vision about Teen Challenge Vermont. Long story short, we ended up, somebody with money saw the pictures of this property I was looking at and wanted to sow into the ministry. He gave me a check for $200,000. I raised another, another $150,000. So we bought the property. We're on 10 acres of land here in beautiful Johnson, Vermont, and with the mountains around us. We bought the property. We fixed it up the best we could. It took little by little, quarter inch at a time. And in 2005, we opened up the ministry, the men's home, in 2005. And the first student came in on January 3rd, 2005 at 4:10 in the afternoon. I'll never forget it. And ever since then, we've been helping men here on this location. We're going on our 20th year pretty soon. And it's just been a blessing. We have 44 men in the program right now. And we've helped many, many lives over the years. I went to Bible college. I'm an ordained Assembly of God pastor. I've done a lot of preaching, teaching, but mainly I've done a lot of just loving people and being there for them. And helping them to find the love of Christ like I did. And it's all a Jesus thing. It was all the grace of God and the mercy of God. And then we opened in 2019, I opened a women's home 25 minutes from here. And today we have a thriving women's home ministry. We have 17 ladies in our house right now helping people. We have an outreach ministry in Southern Vermont where we feed the homeless. We go down, we feed the homeless. We got a couple guys that cut hair. We take the homeless in, we cut their hair, we shave them up, clean them up a little bit, feed them up a little bit, and love them up a lot. Yeah. And they get to know, the love of Christ and get to feel like a human being again. So, all in all, I'm so grateful to God for what he's done in my life.
It's amazing.
And I'm not done yet. I mean, I'm 67. I have I don't even think about retiring. Why would I do that? Because I love what I do. I love this ministry. I love the Lord most of all.
Yeah.
And I just want to get people to the feet of Jesus where they can receive that healing and that love of Christ, that agape love, an unconditional love. It doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done. It's no judgment here. It's just an opportunity to come and to have a life, build a life. I always say, build a life that you don't have to escape from. And
yeah,
it's just what we do here. So I'm a blessed man. I'm living a dream, and it's all because of the Lord Jesus. It's nothing. All I've done was say yes and amen, and he's done the rest.
So is Team Challenge all over the country?
Yes, all over the world.
All over the world.
Yeah, it's in 132 countries. We have about 256 Teen Challenge centers in the United States.
Now, is it teen, T-E-E-N, or T-E-A-M?
Yeah. No, T-E-E-N, as in teenager.
Teenager. Teen Challenge.
But you weren't a teenager when you went in.
No, so that's right. But that's what it was. That's what it was founded on. But since then, we got smart a couple of years ago, and we added the word adult before. So now it's adult and teen challenge. So it's for adults. So our oldest graduate that I know of, he was 77 years old when he graduated the program.
Wow.
His name was Chucky, and he came in a mess, and he ended up being a missionary in Paraguay, South America. So God using him like at 80 years old to go and minister to the people of Paraguay and South America. So it's just, it's amazing. It's an amazing ministry. It's God's ministry, and that's what makes it amazing.
So, Rick, how do we help your ministry? What can we do? How can we at Burros of Berea, and also our audience, anybody that wants to try to help, whether it's through donation or something, how can we help your ministry?
Yeah, it's always, donations are always, one way that will always be helpful to us, because we don't, if somebody doesn't have money, that doesn't keep them from coming into the program.
Right.
So we have 44 men in this program, and that they live with us for anywhere from 10 to 12 months, and we feed them, we clothe them, we various things, we train them, we school them. If somebody doesn't have a GED or high school diploma, we get that for them. They have to get that. We want to set them up for success. We have life coaches that minister to them. It's not only all biblical stuff, but that's a big part of it. But there's practical stuff, education, counseling, mental health counseling, for people like me who've been abused, that need some mental health counseling, and so we recognize that. And but a big thing about our ministry that we like, and a lot of people say, you're the best kept secret in America. We don't want to be a secret.
Right.
We want to be known. We want people to know that there's help. We want people to know that there's a place that they can go, and that they can be loved and not judged, and they can be taken care of, and they have an opportunity to change their life forever. So talk it up, man. Let people know about Adult and Teen Challenge.
We're definitely going to.
Country. Yeah,
we're definitely going
to. You can go on, the internet and Google us, Adult and Teen Challenge, and our headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. We have many, many large centers around the country. We're kind of a medium center here. I'm part of a system in New England. We call it Adult and Teen Challenge New England, New Jersey. And that's where we ministered, and that's our region where we minister. We have about 13 centers in our system, and Vermont, is one of them. Vermont men and Vermont women is another one. So we're 2 of the 13. But we just want people to know that there's a way out. People that are down, people that are hopeless, people see no hope for their future, don't know any way out of addiction. There's a lot of solutions for addiction. But let me tell you, I tried them all. I was on methadone. I was on all kinds of medication. I was in, psychotherapy. I was in, mental institutions. I ended up, I went to Edgehill and Newport, the Betty Ford Clinic of the East, and I ended up in a mental institution just locked away. And
and your relationship with your son today.
Yes, I do. I have 3 beautiful grandsons. He lives in Georgia. I'll tell you what, God is so amazing. And like I said, man, I'm living a dream from where I came from to where I am today. I own a home. I never thought I'd own a home. I remember walking the streets in the wee hours of the morning, just watching people like being up all night and 6 a.m, 7 a.m, watching people going to work and just feeling so empty and so trapped and so much in bondage. But you know what? The Lord set me free, and he gave me all those things. Except I never ended up playing football for the Coast Guard. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, he's an amazing God, and I'm forever grateful to him. And I could never, we could never repay what the Lord's done.
No.
All we can do is love people and try to give back and make a difference in this world for him. I always say now I'm part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is where my nephew went.
Where did he go? You don't know?
I don't know the name of it. I know it was in Florida.
We have many in Florida, many.
And
Sanford.
he got addicted to drugs when he went to Boone to school at App State, that's quite prolific in most probably colleges everywhere. But and I know he ended up going to Florida for probably seemed like it was about a year now. He's been clean for 2 decades. No, yeah, 2 decades maybe.
Yeah, man, it's probably true.
But I saw that on your website it says 78% success rate. That is really high.
So high. Yeah.
That's
high in a good way.
Yeah, that's the right kind of
yeah,
high.
that's right. I always say there's no high like the most high, right?
That's right.
So, but the 78% success rate are for people who complete the program.
Yes.
Because not everybody that walks in the door stays.
Gotcha.
So
They have to want to.
They have to want to, and they have to keep an open mind to the teachings and of the gospel. And some people run out of here like a mad dash, but so many stay, and so many lives have turned around. And I was saying, since I started in 2005, and there was one point in my career that I ran 3 centers. I ran the Vermont Center, which I founded, and I also got assigned to run the Connecticut Center, where I went through. It was my alma mater. I got the privilege of running that for 10 years. And then I had a little hand in the New Jersey Center, too, for a while. So I was traveling back and forth from Vermont to Jersey to Connecticut to Vermont. And since 2005, we've had 69 weddings.
Wow.
69 weddings. So now I not only have spiritual sons and daughters, but I'm beginning to have spiritual grandsons and granddaughters.
That's incredible.
It's just my quiver is full.
Yes,
Yeah,
the blessing. So,
it's the blessing.
So for you listeners, if you'll go back to the main paragraph where you clicked on this podcast, you're going to see the link. I'm going to send you the link to Adult and Teen Challenge, and I'm going to try to find a donate button that will take you directly to Rick Welch in Vermont. Is there a place to do that?
There's a donate on the website on the side.
There's a place on the website you pick, and you can go and select the center
Okay.
to donate, and either select Vermont Men or the women's program is NNEW, Northern New England Women's Home. Adult and Teen Challenge, Northern New England Women's Home.
The closest one to us is Franklin.
Franklin, North Carolina.
And then one in North Carolina. And then one in, I think, Conover. And then there's a boys' home somewhere in that area, too. I looked it up while we were talking. And one in Columbia.
Well, I told you this was an amazing testimony. I told you.
That was.
And I didn't
So
even know all of
good.
that.
Yeah.
What a life.
I know. And so, Mr. Welch, at the end of every testimony, we ask the same question as well. Cherry, do you mind asking the last question?
So, in what you believe, when we die, where do you believe we go after that?
What do I believe?
Yeah.
I believe that the Bible says absence from the body, present with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that I will, when I die, I know, right, that I'll be in the presence of God.
Amen.
In my spirit, if eternally with Him. I really believe that. That's the passion. And we're on Passion Week, right? It's almost
right.
Easter Sunday's coming up. Good Friday is tomorrow. And our faith, if the resurrection didn't happen, it's all for naught, right?
That's right. We're men most miserable.
Right. And Paul said we'd be the most pitied of all people on the face of the earth because we got bamboozled.
Yeah.
But then he said, praise God, because it did happen. Mm-hmm. And it's a game changer. Yes, and it was a game changer in my life. In the book of Job, it says that all the stuff that Job went through, all the stuff, and then he never gave up. He always believed God. And it says, I think towards the end of the book, it says that, and God blessed Job's latter half of his life more than the first.
Yes.
And I say to people, it's not so important how you start, but it's real important how you finish. And I'm finishing strong. I'm not done yet, but I know that I'm going to finish strong, and the end result will be absent from the body, present with the Lord.
Amen.
Amen. That's good stuff. Mr. Rick Welch, it has been a pleasure, sir.
He is actually the OG.
He's the OG. He was, because you were born in 1956, you said, correct?
Yep, 56.
Yep, you're the OG, they call the original gangster, Rick Welch. This is awesome. I'm so glad that I've gotten to meet you, and we're going to be donating to your cause. I'm going to make sure to get that information out to our listeners so that if anyone wants to help, whether it's the women's home or the men's home, either way, that people will start reaching out. Guys, let's share this particular podcast more so than others. Would you? Would you guys go on your Facebook pages, go on your Snapchats and all of your Instagrams, whatever it might be,
the YouTube shorts,
the YouTube,
I don't know,
whatever it is. Let's
X.
share this information out. X, yeah.
You take this particular talk.
Yeah, this isn't about the Burrows. This is about people who really need help. And there's a place where they can go and they can get it.
And with 100,000 people dying a year of opioid, heroin poisoning, fentanyl poisoning.
Yep.
These places are needed.
Big time. They are needed. And like you said, people who finish the program, they have a 78% success rate. That is an amazing, staggering statistic, especially with people that I've lost in my own family.
I've lost a brother to addiction. A younger brother, baby brother. Yeah.
Yep, it's tough stuff. Well, Mr. Welch, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you, Mr. Welch, for having me.
That's just fun, isn't it?
I'm glad the other Rick wasn't here because it would have been 3 Ricks.
Yeah,
only
we have
2
another Rick
Welches,
here.
though.
But only 2 Welches, yeah.
Yeah, but his son, Rick Welch, was an integral part in his life. And you be sure to tell your son what a remarkable testimony that was. And we're glad that he listened to the Lord, and we're glad that he went and found you. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So many people have been touched by your life just because of that one act. You never know what you're going to meet, guys. You never know what you're going to see.
That was a hug.
Yes.
A hug.
That was one heck of a hug.
Has changed hundreds of people's lives.
Isn't that something?
One hug.
He felt the warmth of Jesus' hug through his son. If I keep saying that, I'm going to make her cry.
Yeah, I'm already.
Sarita's been in tears since we've been here, so this is amazing.
Amen.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you so much, and I'll do a follow-up email whenever when this episode actually releases. I'll send you a follow-up email and ask you some more questions to be able to put into our paragraph there for everyone to be able to find you. Okay.
Nice seeing you all, meeting you all.
It was a pleasure.
Nice meeting you too.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. God bless you.
God bless you all.
All right.
Bye now.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
That
What
was
a
amazing.
life.
I know.
What a hard life.
And all because I was selfishly looking up my name on the internet.
So I'm wondering about the younger brother. Once the abuse stopped with the baseball bat,
right?
Did he take it up with the little brother?
Yeah, and I don't know.
I didn't want to ask that question, but the drugs were there, the same escapism, because pedophiles don't stop pedophiling.
No.
Unless they get help. And a baseball bat to the head wouldn't be that help.
No.
Unless it killed him. But
Yeah.
it didn't kill him, so.
Right.
I don't know. I hate to
speculate, but.
Well,
Yeah, and I didn't want to. I actually thought about that early on because he said it ended there, but that was really for him. But see, he was 12.
He wouldn't have known, maybe. Because he would have kept it a secret.
He was old enough to defend himself, just barely.
Just barely.
But enough.
Yeah. Well, guys.
Heavy shit.
That was a heavy one. That's exactly right. But it was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Cherry.
Thanks, Rick.
You look like you're about ready to take a nap. It's warm and cozy in here, isn't it?
I'm good.
I think I got a little too warm in there.
It's wonderful. Andy, thanks for being here. Sarita, this is amazing. And guys, go and donate to these types of causes. See if you can find one in your hometown.
This sounds like good work. Good people doing good work.
This is work where people are really putting the effort in. This is boots on the ground. This is love and action.
Hands and feet of Jesus.
That's exactly right. This is what it's all about.
Arms of Jesus.
Unconditional acceptance, understanding that no matter where you are and what you've done in your life, that there are people out there that love you and that will do this hard work to help you get to that next step. Being that guy in the middle of the night, seeing people go in their homes and having all that stuff and just desiring that and feeling so awful about the choices that he made. And to fast forward now, he's got a home, he's got a relationship with his son. He has things in his life and all he wants to do is just to keep helping other people.
Yeah, he's got work that makes him feel
that's right.
Fulfilled.
Yeah, it's nice. All right, guys. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. He was a much better Rick Welch than the one you got here. Anyway, I will talk to you guys again next time on the Burros of Berea. Peace out.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Hey, guys. This is Rick from the Burros of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burros of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys.